Okay, thank you. Welcome to the Murray Council meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Brett Hales is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, we don't have any.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Put your time at 6:30.
Thank you, Brett. All right, approval of minutes, we have none scheduled. Special recognition, none scheduled. Citizen comments. If you have citizen comments, please send them to city.council@murray.utah.gov. Do we have any?
We do. We received one comment from Dan Fazzini Jr., and I will go ahead and read it. I would like to express my concern over the moratorium on only certain zones or zone change applications. A few weeks ago, Murray announced that they were holding any new applications for mixed-use developments. Although I can understand the impact of the increase of applications can have on the staff, this is not equitable to other existing zones or the process as a whole. If the city is receiving an increase in applications, the city should probably look at hiring or contracting additional resources to address the change or to meet the application needs. City staff have brought up the legislation from 2019 where initially there was going to be a penalty for cities not considering enough choice alternative or low to moderate income housing. In the end, it was amended to only include a report back to the legislature. It does not require that every zone support every use. Although I agree the general plan is a living document, having directly participated in the general plan process, I am very aware of the tremendous number of resources in both staff and time and public input is considered in the final document. These often provide a buffer in zone changes between commercial and single-family houses. Large changes should not be taken lightly and highly scrutinized, probably more so than zones covered in this current moratorium. I asked the city reconsider the moratorium and develop other methods to resolve the increased load on these applications. Thank you. And that's all we received.
Okay, pardon me, thank you. Consent agenda, we have none scheduled. We have 3 public hearings. First, consider an ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Brenda Moore.
So I'm going to do this one starting out. I'll move to my computer. But the did your mic on?
Got it. I think I figured it out. You hired me to be finance, not tech. Okay, so this is a public hearing for the budget amendment for the 2021 budget. We went over this in the committee of the whole. There's just a few minor items on these. Okay, they're not minor in my wallet, but in the city's wallet. They're to clean up some budget things for a year end. So we did receive more state alcohol money than what we had originally budgeted as an estimate. And so we're going to increase and allocate the revenue of $7,605 for that. The building division has had some open positions in their building inspections. And so I'm going to move some funds from their payroll area down into their professional services. $190,000, and they have recently, I think, filled those positions, and we should be okay with that budget amount being moved. In the general fund, I need to increase the sales tax revenue budget by $137,850. We have received way more sales tax than we had originally budgeted, which is a very good thing. And so we're going to increase the police department overtime budget by $75,000, so they have enough to make sure they get all of their investigations done that they need to do through the rest of the year. IT needed some additional disk space, and so we're budgeting $22,000 for that. IT also readjusted how some of their positions were and some of their responsibilities. And so I need to increase their salaries and benefits in that particular department by $23,000. to better match what they're doing with their compensation. And then I need to increase the outdoor pool salaries and benefits by $17,850 due to an employee being 3/4 time, but I budgeted him at half time. And that has been fixed in the next budget, and hopefully it will never happen again. I'm not going to promise, though. The Murray Parkway Golf Fund, we're going to increase their greens fees revenue by $28,000 and allocate that to the professional services for the 4UP software. We exchange a few tee times, non-prime, I made sure of that, non-prime tee times for the software they use to schedule them online. And I think it's a fairly good trade. We do analyze that occasionally to make sure that we couldn't just go buy software somewhere for that. In the risk fund, we have received $230,581 in insurance proceeds for a case that was settled, and we're appropriating those to professional service. And the risk fund, we are also going to use $380,000 of reserves, allocating $250,000 of that to professional services for legal expenses in the settlement. And we're also allocating $130,000 for claims expense on other pending cases that are out there. The risk fund, this is exactly why we have a risk fund that's out there with $1.4 million in reserves, is so that when cases do get settled and we have to pay our portion of the deductible, which is $250,000, we don't have to play with the general fund. The risk fund has the reserves out there to cover when this happens. We just happen to have a really bad or good year. It's a good year, we got a lot settled, a bad year in that we had a lot to settle. So that's what's in the budget amendment. So.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. I'll open up the public hearing part of this meeting for citizen comments. Do we have any on this?
We did not receive anything for this.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and I'll bring it back to the council. Do you have any questions for Brenda? Okay, I'll look for a motion.
I will make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the city's fiscal year 2021 budget.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Brooke?
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hales,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
and Mr. Cox.
Aye. Okay, we'll move on. Consider an ordinance adopting the transfer of monies from the enterprise funds to other city funds. Brenda?
Okay, got the tech. I'm going to share my screen. I'll just go over this quickly before we open the public hearing. This is one of the few times that share. Let's go here. Oh, that's the budget public hearing. I don't want to see that one. This one. Okay, did I get it shared?
There it is.
Beautiful. So we are doing this public hearing in response to Utah State Code 10-6-135.5, which they allow us to do transfers from the enterprise funds into the general fund. And this is a public hearing to discuss this. And then you have to pass it as something separate from the budget. And we also need to do a discussion of the administrative and overhead costs that we allocate out. So I'm just going to go through this very quickly. If you have any questions, let me know. It should look very familiar to those of you who were watching last year. So what's the difference? Transfers out, they're a calculation based on the percent of an enterprise fund's revenue, which currently is 8. The shareholder return on, it's classified as, for me, a shareholder return on investment to the general fund to subsidize services that would otherwise require an increase in property tax. If your power company is Rocky Mountain Power, part of what they have is they have shareholders, and their shareholders get dividends and stuff. This is what this transfer is. We base it on a percent of revenue as opposed to earnings, but it's the same concept. They contribute approximately 8% of the general fund revenues, or $3.97 million. And that's just the transfers out from the enterprise funds to the general fund. Is it not working? I didn't touch anything. That's the wrong one. I want this one. No, that's the wrong one. I want this one. Let's do new share. I only do PowerPoints once a year. So the administrative cost allocation, that's the allocation based on actual administrative services costs. So this pays for centralized administration, such as the legislative or the council. Some of their costs get allocated to other departments and funds, legal, finance, IT, human resources, UB billing, the treasurer's office, etc. The estimated cost to the enterprise funds of this is approximately $3.8 million. The transfers to the general fund, the general definition is movement of cash or other resources from one fund to another for a transfer. The purpose, where the private sector utility companies are in business to provide a return investment to its shareholders, Murray City shareholders, its taxpayers and citizens receive this return on investment as a transfer to the general fund. It is currently 8% of budgeted revenues in water, wastewater, and power, so only those three. We eliminated the garbage one last year and stormwater 3 or 4 years ago. For the fiscal 21-22 budget, these are the numbers, and you can see on the chart, it's a very small percentage of their revenue. The power fund looks like it's a bigger percentage. It's not. That number is just bigger and wider, so it takes it a little, you can see it. And so of the user fee revenue of $49 million, the transfer that will be coming to the general fund is 3.9, straight 8%. The administrative cost allocation, we started it with a study performed in 2012. It has been readjusted and adjusted as things change and what people are doing has changed. So we're allocating the council, mayor, finance, utility billing, human resources, the attorney, city treasurer, recorder's office, IT, and GIS. And so this is how it kind of looks. These are the total costs of the departments. City council, finance department is $622,000. Add them all up, it's $8.5 million. And they're allocated over here. The general fund keeps 52.2% of that. So 52% of the 8.5 stays in the general fund, and the rest go to the other funds as they are listed. The smallest being the library at $110,000. And the biggest, of course, is power. I could think the attorneys spend a lot of time on power contracts. So, and this is just kind of put it in a little chart for you, just because it's always easier to read a chart. Let's see the general fund and then the power and where they're, the water. And then just a quick, you're going to probably see this on another slide, but where the money comes from in the general fund, 8% of it is coming from the transfers. And then course, sales tax is our biggest. Property tax is the next. I would like those two numbers to be more equal, but they are not. And then where it goes, you could say that 8%, a lot of that, in fact, most of it goes directly to transfers out, which end up in capital projects, most of them. So that is the transfers.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. I'll open it up for public comment, open the hearing for public comment.
We did not receive anything for this item.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Are there any questions for Brenda?
No, but thank you. Did a great job.
You guys will have that memorized.
Yeah, that PowerPoint was great. All right, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the ordinance, that we approve the ordinance adopting the transfer of monies from the enterprise funds to other city funds.
I will second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Laura?
Ms. Turner,
Aye.
Mr. Hales,
Aye.
Ms. Martinez,
Aye.
and Mr. Cox.
Aye. Okay, our last public hearing, consider an ordinance adopting the final 2021-2022 fiscal year budget for Murray City, including library fund budget. Brenda?
Okay, we're going to try this whole share screen again. If I can find it. I see what the issue is when you're used to having a whole bunch of screens. To find the right little, okay. So I'm just going to do a quick overview of the budget. So this is for the public hearing for the 2021-22 budget. What will the next fiscal year bring? Nobody knows, but the Utah economy is doing well. There are still some business sectors, as we know. Oh, I'm not. How did that not happen?
I've got it on my phone. Does that help?
Okay, let's try here. Let's go back here. Share screen. Where is he? Doesn't seem to want to be there. It's right there. Yeah. Okay. Sure. It's not showing up there. There we go. Okay. So while the overall Utah economy is doing really well, there, of course, are some business sectors and individual businesses that are still suffering from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are still lots of businesses who can't find employees. There are lots of women who are not working because they can't find childcare, which leads to the can't find employees. And it's just, there's a big vicious cycle out there right now. The biggest concern I have for 2022 is possible inflation, especially in our construction costs. The best estimate I have right now is the city will finish fiscal year 21 around 30% in the general fund. And I did find out the state legislature will allow us to keep up to 35%. So we will be fine. They changed the law during the last session. And as the budget is proposed, we should end fiscal 22 around 26%.
Brenda?
Yes.
Is that that's a permanent law that was changed, or is it
Yep,
just for
it's
the
permanent.
Okay.
There was somebody, some city somewhere with lots of clout who decided that we should have more reserves. It wasn't us.
Wow, 35%.
35%.
25
And
to
there was a
35.
bunch of other interlocals and various other things that also could
Okay.
change their
All right. Thank you.
percentages. But yes. So we will have discussions on how fast we want to get to 35%, but for this purpose, we're going to stay at 30. The city will be receiving American Rescue Plan Act funds during fiscal year 2022 and 2023. The budget does not include anything for those funds. The general overview, no property tax increase. Sales tax revenue is budgeted at 1% above what I expect to collect this year. Charges for services and fines and forfeitures budgets in the general fund have been decreased because they're having continuing effects from the COVID-19 pandemic. I should have decreased them more last year, but who knew? Charges for services in the water, wastewater, and solid waste funds were increased due to previously approved rate increases. All remaining revenues have been budgeted very conservatively so that it helps control our spending. These things were funded. The step plan increases were funded, a 3% cost of living, the medical and dental insurance increase of 6.1 and 0.5. Workers' compensation premiums also increased. That's a very small number, but it's always good to know that what's happening with them. 3 new positions were requested and approved: a civil engineer, a senior planner, and a police lieutenant. 13 pay ranges were adjusted to stay within 3% of market, and 6 position adjustments were done to better align with their duties. In the operations, we returned line items which were cut in fiscal year 21 to 2020 levels where they were necessary. We did not restore everything, just where people thought that they needed to be restored. The capital improvements projects, we have $7.8 million in projects to maintain or purchase facilities, equipment, or infrastructure out there. So we will be buying quite a few things in CIP. The enterprise funds are continuing to do infrastructure projects that are outlined in their master plans, and Power is going to create a master plan as part of their budget this time. There's just a general budget overview of all the funds. We are using $2.7 million of reserves in the general fund to make this budget balance. Those are reserves that were created last year or in fiscal year 21. The 2 years will actually end up pretty even, if not increased. The other funds are the library is continuing to save for their new library. The RDA fund is going to be building balance as it sits right now. All of the enterprise funds, the majority of them are using their fund balance to create assets, which is just changing from a cash into an asset. We are concerned. I think you heard about the wastewater fund with all of the Central Valley construction. So we're looking at that right now. And the solid waste fund is starting to build a small balance, which we need. They were just about to go negative before our last rate increase. As things transition into the new transfer stations and the closing of it's probably going to be good if solid waste has a fund balance there to handle some increased costs. So that is just the basic overview. Where it comes from, I just saw this by $53 million. You've got sales tax being our main source, and where it goes, the most being police and fire. The blue and the red take the majority of our budget, and then other than that, Parks and Recreation is next, and transfers out, which goes to the CIP fund. So that's just a great flyover of our budget. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Brenda. I'll now open up the public comment section of the hearing. Do we have any comments?
We do not.
Okay, well then I'll close that and bring it back to the council. No questions? I'll take a motion. Well, then I won't worry about it. Then never mind. Okay, with that, we have no business items scheduled. How about the mayor's report?
Yeah, sorry, I was just chatting with GL.
He wanted us to pass the budget, did he?
I was just asking if there was any formal action needed or any action needed to keep the public hearing open. But he says no. So thank you. I just have a couple of items. And they're both related to the Parks and Recreation. The outdoor pool over the weekend was very, very popular. Yesterday, Memorial Day. Well, let me start with Saturday. 141 customers came in, and yesterday or Sunday there were 240. But on Monday, 829 customers in the pool. Now, keep in mind they weren't all there at the same time, but yeah. So the pool was very, very popular yesterday. Big hit. And then I also just wanted to give a shout out to our cemetery crew for the cemetery looked just really, really good this weekend for Memorial Day. They did a great job. They keep our cemetery maintained year round, but it looked especially good for the holiday. So just wanted to thank them. And I will entertain questions if you have any.
Any questions for the mayor?
No questions, but just a big thanks to your staff and Brenda and the department heads, everyone. I mean, really, from the 2020 to now to this budget has been pretty impressive. So, and Kat, you did a great job. And Diane and was it? Well, I'm thinking about the people that chair it, but anyway, it was very impressive going through that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. And with that, the meeting is adjourned.